A flight attendant removed a black boy from the plane, assuming he didn't belong in first class. But little did she know, just minutes later, he would reveal his true identity as the airline's owner. What happens next will leave you speechless and deliver a powerful lesson about judgment and assumptions. Stay tuned until the end to witness this unbelievable story unfold. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. At New York's JFK International Airport, the terminal buzzed with flight announcements, rolling suitcases, and hurried footsteps. Among the crowd was Caleb Turner, a 12-year-old black boy with bright, curious eyes and a quiet confidence. Dressed in a simple hoodie and jeans, he carried a backpack packed with books and snacks, ready for his flight. For the first time, Caleb was flying alone, heading to Washington, D.C., to meet his father, Jonathan Turner, the CEO of Airlines, one of the nation's largest carriers. Despite growing up as the son of an airline mogul, Caleb had always been taught the values of humility and respect. As he reached the gate, he handed his first-class ticket to the agent, who smiled and directed him toward the jet bridge. Stepping onto the plane, Caleb found seat 2A, settled in, and slid his backpack neatly under the seat. He then pulled out a book about aviation. His father's love for planes had clearly passed down to him, and he was eager to learn everything he could. Just as Caleb got comfortable, Melissa Porter, a flight attendant with a strict, no-nonsense attitude, walked down the aisle. The moment her sharp gaze landed on Caleb, her expression soured. "Excuse me," she said in a clipped tone. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" Caleb looked up, polite but confused. "Yes, ma'am. This is my seat, 2A. Melissa frowned, crossing her arms. "First class isn't for standby passengers or upgrades," she stated. "This section is reserved for paying customers." Caleb blinked, startled. "I have a ticket," he said, reaching into his pocket. But Melissa didn't even bother to look. "You need to move to the back," she said, her voice firm. "I can't have people sitting where they don't belong." A few nearby passengers exchanged puzzled glances, but no one spoke up. Caleb hesitated, his cheeks burning with embarrassment. "I really do have a ticket," he repeated, his voice quieter now. Melissa sighed impatiently. "Look, I don't have time for this. Either move, or I'll have to ask you to leave the plane." Tears stung Caleb's eyes, but he held his head high. "Fine," he said softly, grabbing his backpack and walking toward the exit. As he stood near the door, unsure what to do next, Melissa radioed the gate agents. "Remove this child," she ordered curtly. A confused gate agent approached. "But he's a ticketed passenger," she said. Melissa dismissed her with a wave. Caleb, still silent, stepped off the plane and stood near the gate while whispers spread among the passengers. At that moment, Emily Harris, the terminal manager, noticed him. A sharp-eyed professional, Emily had worked closely with Jonathan Turner on multiple airline projects. The moment she saw Caleb, she recognized him immediately. "Caleb? What are you doing here?" she asked, hurrying over. Fighting back tears, Caleb explained what had happened. "She didn't even look at my ticket," he said, his voice trembling. "She just assumed I wasn't supposed to be there." Emily's expression hardened with anger. "Stay right here," she said, pulling out her phone. Moments later, she was on a call with Jonathan Turner. "Jonathan, your son was just kicked off one of your flights?" "What?" Jonathan's voice was sharp.
"Yes."
"Kicked off. He's standing here in tears because one of your employees assumed he didn't belong in first class." Jonathan's response was instant. "I'm on my way. Don't let that plane take off." Just 11 minutes later, Jonathan Turner strode into the terminal. Dressed in a tailored suit, his commanding presence turned heads. The moment he saw Caleb, he knelt down, wrapping his arms around him. "Are you okay, son?" Caleb nodded, though his eyes were still red. "I didn't do anything wrong, Dad." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "I know." He stood up, turning to Emily. "Let's fix this." Led by Emily, Jonathan and Caleb walked back to the gate, straight onto the plane. Passengers murmured as they recognized the powerful CEO. Jonathan approached Melissa, his expression calm, yet ice-cold. Are you the flight attendant who removed my son from this plane? Melissa blinked, clearly caught off guard. I didn't know he was your son, she stammered. Jonathan's eyes hardened. That shouldn't matter. His voice was steady, but his words carried weight. You didn't check his ticket. You humiliated a child in front of your passengers because of an assumption. Tell me, do you treat all customers this way, or just the ones who don't look like they belong in first class? Melissa flushed, her composure slipping. I thought he was trying to sneak in. Jonathan didn't hesitate. You thought wrong. Turning to the captain, he said firmly, this plane isn't leaving until this situation is resolved. Then, addressing the passengers, Jonathan's voice rang through the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. But this is a matter of principle. No one, especially a child, should be treated like they don't belong simply because of their appearance. My son, Caleb, had every right to be here. This behavior does not represent the values of Airlines, and it will not be tolerated. The passengers burst into applause, many nodding in agreement. Jonathan turned back to Melissa. You're relieved of your duties for this flight. HR will be discussing your employment status. Melissa's face paled as she gathered her belongings and exited the plane in silence. As the aircraft prepared for takeoff, Caleb returned to his seat, this time with his father beside him. Passengers smiled at him, offering words of encouragement. Are you okay now? Jonathan asked. Caleb nodded. Yeah, thanks for coming, Dad. Jonathan ruffled his son's hair. Always. In the following weeks, Jonathan launched an investigation into Airline's training programs. Melissa's dismissal was confirmed, and the company introduced mandatory training on racial bias and customer service. Months later, Caleb sat in his father's office, flipping through designs for a new airline initiative, one aimed at making luxury travel more accessible to underserved communities. Dad, Caleb said, eyes shining. I want to help with this. I want to make sure no one ever feels like they don't belong. Jonathan smiled, pride in his eyes. You're already making a difference, Caleb. Let's build it together. As Caleb gazed out the window at a jet soaring into the sky, a renewed sense of purpose filled him. What started as a painful moment of humiliation had transformed into a powerful lesson for himself, for his father, and for the airline as a whole. Have you ever experienced or witnessed unfair treatment like Caleb did? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales of justice and resilience.